At this time, the board will reconvene into open session. We are at item 6.01, consider approval of Lakewood Elementary School principal for the 2025-2026 school year. I will accept the motion.
I move the board approve Kristen Harris as principal of Lakewood Elementary School.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve Kristen Harris as the principal of Lakewood Elementary School. Please vote. And that motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Harris. I'd like to give you a second to introduce anyone you have with you here tonight.
Yes, thank you. I have my, you don't need to This is my husband, Brian, this is Jokester. And then my two beautiful children, both live in Cambry, my mom, Denise, and then my wonderful friends who have just shown up. So my husband, and then the nosiest staff ever meet. And then my mentor and the person who has been most instrumental in my career, Cameron, the current principal who I hope to follow in her footsteps with this staff. And I just thank you for giving me an opportunity to work with this incredible community who, it's a dream come true, and I just, a prayer that has been answered, because the amount of people here shows you how just incredible Lakewood is, and I just am so excited to work with these people every day, and just get to experience how great Lakewood is with these people, and what Cameron has built, and I will continue to build. So thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Congratulations again, and I know you have a lot of people here, and you probably want to take pictures and go get dinner, so.
And I'm not sure we've ever had a reaction like that.
Yeah.
Notorious, I just get up and walk. I don't know if I awkwardly just wait.
Yeah, so we'll give you a minute. You have so y'all can. Yep. Good.
Lakewood, you can go to. Good answer, Becky. Good answer.
Okay, board, we're at item 7.01, disbursements for the month of February 2025. Any questions? 7.02, Education Resource Group, ERG update. Ms. Tower Reed.
Hello, and thank you for having me once again. I'm happy to be back here in 2025 to present the Education Resource Group report on HEB's performance, especially in terms of academics in the 23-24 school year. This is a little later than we usually present. Unfortunately, the TEA was a little delayed in getting out the large data file that we require. Although the TAPR reports were released individually in December, we require the large data file because, as you know, what sets ERG apart from other measurement tools out there is that we look at performance relative your district relative to other districts, your campuses relative to other campuses. So we need the complete data set. So we got that 3 weeks ago this past Friday, and we've been very diligent and working some overtime in order to get all of that data into the system. All of the district level data is now available for your school and district administrators to be utilizing, to be looking at areas for to celebrate as well as areas to improve upon. Campus level data is still being updated because there's over 9,000 campuses that we report data on, and some of that detail we'll be working with your administrative staff here in the next few weeks. Expect to have that available. But moving forward, kind of again, a reminder of what sets ERG apart is that we are a performance management tool. We are your third-party data validation tool that you use to identify performance trends within the district. So you can only measure you can only manage what you measure, right? We treasure what we measure. So that's one of the things that ERG does, is we bring that high-level view to make sure that we're not taking our eye off the target. So the first question we try and answer is, how well is your organization doing? I'm happy to report HEB is still one of our top school districts in the state when we look at the 200 largest districts in Texas. But we also importantly identify where improvements are necessary, because every year things change. And because we are a relative tool, we look again at how the system moved as a whole. We know that the accountability ratings didn't come out again this year. That means that we have 2019 was the last year we had accountability ratings. So how well are we doing? And again, if we think we didn't do as well as we would like to do, how did everybody else? Did they get better? Did we fall back? Did everybody else fall back? And we moved ahead anyway. Those are things that the tool helps you identify. But knowing where to work is how we work smarter. Who are the models of high performance? Well, this is kind of hard for you guys as a district because you are perpetually there at the top, but there are still folks that you can go, and the system easily identifies who those folks are that you can look towards as high performers. And then lastly, this is cyclical. This is why I'm back here this year, is because we have to go back and measure whether or not the strategies we put in place last year had the desired outcome. All right, so it's cyclical. And the greatest challenge to performance improvement is the difficulty that some organizations have in seeing themselves as they really are. And this, again, just like a scale, allows you, the data is not good, it's not bad, the data is data. It's what you do about it. And Hurst-Euless-Bedford has always been one of those districts that appreciates the clarity in terms of identifying what those challenges might be, but also celebrating those successes, because that is important. You have a history of high performance. Kind of a little bit about our system as a reminder too. Through A through F accountability, there's 15% weighted on the 3-star performance levels. 45% is weighted on the college, career, military ready measures, and 10% on graduation rates. And you'll notice that our achievement index and also our performance index, it's the performance index is the same measures, just adjusted for demographics. We're a little bit different. 20% weighted on each of the star performance levels, 10% on graduation rates, TSI criteria, SAT, and ACT. And the reason that we don't use CCMR is it is a wildly changing metric from year to year. So if you're trying to use a tool to establish how well the organization is doing, having metrics that change that much year to year are not a good way to steer the ship. If True North is constantly changing, we got a problem. So that's why we choose to use these metrics. But there is another reason that we weight a lot of, especially the post-secondary, at 10%. SAT and ACT, the participation rates have changed a lot over the last few years. We're seeing a resurgence in 2024 in SAT and ACT participation rates. Graduation rates is a very compressed metric. So there's a very narrow margin of performance. So very slight changes can make for a big jump in terms of your performance and graduation rates. And TSI criteria graduates is also a measure that is next to graduation rates, actually has one of the lowest correlations, but it's still better than CCMR. So there's no such thing as a perfect model, just some are more useful than others. So these are the measures that we find are the most useful for measuring school district performance. What again sets ERG apart, or originally set us apart, but now Domain 2, Part 2 is pretty closely mirrors what ERG has been doing for 25 years, which is understanding the importance of demographics on student outcomes, particularly our students of poverty, so economically disadvantaged students. This model holds as true as it did 25 years ago today. We're still seeing that performance gap from 0% economically disadvantaged to 100% economically disadvantaged. But the goal is obviously to try and close that performance gap. So just like a height-weight chart, what we see here is economically disadvantaged students is on the x-axis, and pass rates that happens to be meet is on the y-axis. And as we increase our percentage of economically disadvantaged students, are we performing above or below that expected value, which is demonstrated by the blue line, the trend line? So the district that's on the far left has 25% economically disadvantaged students and is performing roughly 5% below the expected value, while the district on the far right is performing about 20 some odd points above an expected value. This becomes a measure of effectiveness. Who is most effective at educating the students that they have? Of course, we would all like to get higher achievement, but again, this is the effectiveness of our people and our programs. So again, we're leveling that playing field. This is just how we do it, and we actually measure how many points above or below that trend line a district is performing. So that one with 85% economically disadvantaged students was performing 22.4 points above, while the one with 25% economically disadvantaged students is performing roughly 5% below. Again, achievement has a strong bias towards districts and campuses that have a low percentage of economically disadvantaged students. It's important. We want to measure achievement, but we need to keep that in consideration, whereas performance removes that socioeconomic bias and allows us the opportunity to, again, identify highly effective organizations, people, and programs. And again, now that with A through F being the accountability system in play, this has been the way that we look at performance for the last 25 years. And it's not a coincidence. Commissioner Morath will tell you that the idea was because of us when he was in Dallas. So happy to say the dot for Hurst-Euless-Bedford in 2024 remains at the very top of our performance matrix. So we have achievement on the x-axis, performance on the y. So our green box districts, and this is the 200 largest districts in Texas, the green box districts are both high performing and high achieving. And this will apply to our campuses too when we're looking at campuses. The blue and the yellow box are what I like to call hiding in plain sight. Blue, these are districts that are low achieving but high performing. So a lot of times the accountability system won't see them as performing well, but yet they are exceeding their expected value once we adjust for the demographics. Yellow is hiding in plain sight because these folks are high achieving but underperforming. All right, so achievement perceives them as doing well, but yet they're leaving a lot on the table. Now, one of the other things that sets ERG apart from even the A through F accountability system is that we also look at efficiency, because we want to remove the hurdles, those obstacles to performance improvement. And so one of the arguments that we used to get early on is, well, if I just had more money, I could do better. But there are folks like Hurst-Euless-Bedford that don't get as much funding as some other school districts. So now the idea is, who is doing more with less? So that way, when somebody's saying, well, I need more money to get there, well, what if I can show you a district like Hurst-Euless-Bedford that is high achieving, high performing, and yet gets less money and is spending less per student than you are? All right, so we want to remove those obstacles to performance. At the campus level, it's based off of staffing. So who is staffed more efficiently? All right. Looking at the changes to The peer group that I worked with the district administration to, and this has actually been pretty steady for the last few years. This is a peer group that you all frequently compare yourselves to. And the 2023 matrix is there on the left and 2024 is on the right. And you'll see that HEB's dot has stayed pretty much in the same spot. So did Katie's. Katie actually moved back in achievement just a little bit, so declined just slightly in achievement, but stayed on the same level pretty much in terms of performance. Carroll moved still extremely high achieving, but moved down in terms of performance. Conroe stayed just about the same. Cy-Fair stayed very similar. Birdville moved down quite a bit. You'll notice they dropped into that second green box, and then but Mansfield and Richardson both moved up into the right a little bit. Keller also saw some improvement closing in on moving into that green box again. So good to see that movement from them. Now, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, and Northwest still tend to be our problem children in the area. Again, Northwest is one of those school districts that is perceived by achievement standards to be doing very well, but is significantly underperforming. Any questions here? Okay. Some of for the most part, our movements stayed very consistent within the district, which we kind of tend to expect to see here. So very small changes. We saw achievement go up by 0.5 percentile. So it went from, the achievement index went from the 81.4 percentile to the 81.9. And in terms of performance, we actually saw it go down 1% from the 97.4 percentile to the 96.4 percentile. Now, remind you, when you're at the top, very small movements, keep you keep you bubbling there along the top. These are very, very, very small changes. One of the hardest things is actually to maintain a high-performing organization. And again, as you can see from these longitudinals displaying data since 2014, that you are consistently high-performing year after year. We don't have the financial data yet. That comes out typically in April, but we do predictive analytics. That is the red dots on those longitudinals. And you'll see that you're still predicted based off of past performance trends that we expect you to stay right there at the very top. All right, any questions here? Looking at some of the changes to those elements that make up the achievement and performance index, that middle grouping right through here is the achievement index, and down below is the performance index. And one of the things that we do in the system is that we identify those metrics that had the most change in the year-to-year movement. And you'll see that in terms of achievement, approaches, meets, and masters all stayed relatively steady. Again, we're talking about a 1% to 0.5% change. The things that, again, stand out would be some of those post-secondary measures. Do remember that those are only weighted at 10%, all right? And that, again, especially TSI criteria graduates, has a relatively low correlation rate. It is not a very predictable metric. So whereas when we look at the correlation rates, how good a metric is at predicting outcomes, the approaches, meets, and masters have a R-square or correlation of upward of a usually 0.7 to 0.8, which is really, really high. As a comparison, just so you know, TSI criteria has a correlation rate of 0.25. So very low. For typically to use something in a model, we like it to be above a 0.35. But again, in terms of post-secondary measures, we're kind of restricted in terms of things that we can track over time, and so having those stable, steady metrics. So I do want to mention that even though we're seeing those declines in the TSI criteria graduates and SAT scores, but it's particularly in TSI criteria graduates, it's not a great metric. So take it for what it's worth. Obviously look for improvement there. I know that that's a goal anyway. Y'all don't like to let any stone unturned, but it is not something that ERG would be overly worried about when we're looking at the overall performance in that area. Questions?
Is there some correlation there with the drop in the SAT? I mean, is that typical across the board with something that's going on
I can't answer that yet. So the data is kind of new for us too, in terms of just getting it into the system. And so TSI being something that popped up here, especially you guys being the first board that I'm presenting to with this new data, I looked into it, so I wanted to look into it a little bit more. I had a conversation with Brandon Johnson about that too. So I started digging into it, which is why I had that answer. But with SAT, I need to look into it more. So now, one of the things that we didn't collect in years past, but was brought to my attention through conversations with your administrative team here, was that the participation rate when it comes to SATs, especially in this district, is very, very high. And so we actually started collecting that data and displaying it in the system. So that way, my next step is to go and look at the SAT participation rates, see the relationship between your participation rates, and see if there are other districts out there that have similar high participation rates like you guys do, and see what kind of experience they had in their SAT scores. So that's something that we'll be digging into with your folks very, very soon. Not a problem. So all of our system, by the way, is driven by customer requests. So when we hear something like we want to see participation rates and see where the relationship is there, that's something that we tend to respond to, because if you're asking it, it makes sense. There we go. Now, when we're looking at elementary and middle schools, they're a little bit different. High schools mirror the district in terms of how we look at performance at the high school level, so it includes those post-secondary measures. But elementary and middle schools are completely weighted on the 3-star performance levels, but that's very similar to TAPR and the accountability rating system, so that's not overly surprising. But when we look at the performance of your elementary schools from 2023 to 2024, we did see 2 significant drops, Arbor Creek and Shady Brook. So those 2, again, I've already started working with the administration. We're going to be, in the executive leadership team, in the next week, I expect to have grade level detail in the system, so that way we can pinpoint which subjects, which grades are the ones year to year that we're seeing the drop. Is it approaches, meets, and masters? So that way we can really target and also help work with those campuses in terms of setting goals. To make sure that as we look forward and set goals for following years, that are we moving that campus dot up and to the right? And we actually created a predictive tool, a goal-setting tool that we call Oracle, that I just gave the beta version to Mr. Johnson a few minutes ago. So we will be testing it and working with you guys to use that tool to set goals for the campuses. All right. Just kind of looking overall in terms of the achievement index in the columns to the right, to the left, and the performance index to the right. Some of our high performers, and again, I want to mention we need to celebrate in years where we know that STAR, and especially obviously with the litigation that's going on through ARS, we know that it was a difficult year with STAR. So you had some campuses that really showed a lot of improvement, especially in terms of achievement. Spring Garden is up there, Stonegate is up there. 2 campuses, again, that showed significant growth, even above other elementary schools out there. Okay. Your junior highs stayed pretty tightly clustered up towards the top, so kudos to them. Not a lot of shifting in terms of their movement, very small changes. We'll look at those in just a second. But always a caution to those middle schools is some of those elementary schools, kids are going to be feeding into them, so they need to be prepared for those challenges where they're going to have to fill in some of the gaps that might have happened in 2024. But your administration tends to be doing that already, so that's not something that I really have to pound home as a message. Y'all are already on it. So overall, you can see that Bedford Central and Euless Junior High all moved up in terms of achievement, and Bedford Junior High stayed the same, which is hard to do when you're at the top. They're in the 95th percentile. And Central also moved up, and they're even higher. They're in the 99th percentile in terms of performance. So, I mean, this is outstanding. And so, again, those small changes, we're looking at 0.5% to 1% change in terms of the performance index, and 2% change in the achievement index. So, this is all weighted on STAR, but your junior highs are outstanding. Your high schools are outstanding as well, but we did, and we saw Keys. Now, Keys, I know, is one of those campuses that its enrollment and those students assigned to it do change year to year. So very small changes there in terms of enrollment. You know, 1 or 2 students can really change the data metrics for Keys. So they bumped into the green, though. That's always good to see. But Trinity and Bell both moved up and to the right in the matrix. So kudos. And again, improvement in both the achievement index and performance index. So so remember here that the TSI criteria graduates is here too, all right? So your high schools are moving forward despite what we saw there at the district level. So do keep that in mind, okay? And that's where I'm gonna end, because you folks are staying at the top. Your leadership here is always a pleasure to work with, because they are one of those that when we look at this list of what constitutes successful organizations, we know to expect this from Hurst-Euless-Bedford. When I work with your leadership team, they are always looking outside the district to compare their results to others and make sure that that performance is not just how are we doing within our bubble of Hurst-Euless-Bedford, but how are we doing in a wider context, and not just even geographically, looking outside of that. Continuously looking for opportunity for improvement, and how can we do better with the systems that we have. Systematically measuring performance year to year. That's why I'm here every year and glad to be. And you're not a district that confuses motion with accomplishment. The job is not to stay busy. The job is to do better year after year. And you're also an organization that focuses on effectiveness first. You just happen to also be very efficient at it. So getting to the top in public education is hard work, but staying there is the challenge, and you guys do it year after year, and it's always a pleasure to come here and tell you about it. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Does the board have any questions?
No questions. I just have one comment. We're very proud of the fact that something that you said early on in the presentation was that we actually financially get less than many districts, and we do better with that. This is sort of my opportunity to point out that that is happening across the state of Texas, but it has really hit hard in this area. And HEB has been very thoughtful about how we are spending our money and what we're spending it on. And you also mentioned something about some districts say, well, if you just give me more money, I can do better. And you don't know what that would look like. I can tell you what it looks like in HEB because we did get more money post-pandemic. And what we were able to do was close that gap for our students quicker than any of those districts around. And if you look at the data from, I think it was 2022, all those other districts went way, way down, and we did not.
And you guys didn't. You
right?
guys held steady.
So what that has proved, what we've been able to prove, is that when we get more money, we apply it to the places that help the students that need it the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
All right. If we don't have any more questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next year.
Absolutely.
All right. 7.03, report on HEBISD Grow Your Own Teacher Programs. Ms. Tuttle.
We are very excited to present to you some information tonight on our Grow Your Own program that is part of a response to the teacher shortage that all districts have faced. And tonight, I want to introduce to you Hector Martinez, our Director of Human Resources, and Tiffany Benavides, our Coordinator of Human Resources for Elementary, who are going to walk you through 2 new innovative programs that we planned during the school year last year and have implemented this year, and give you a state of where we are with those programs. I am supposed to go over that, thank you. So this ties directly to our strategic plan priority of employee success. And you see that we're focusing on the goal regarding recruitment and retention of employees and our 95% quarterly average fill rate, which you heard us present on at last meeting.
All right, good evening. So HEBISD has always been a destination district. We know that, and we continue to be a destination district. We have a lot of interest in our district, as is evident in the applications for our upcoming job fair. But like Cicely said earlier, because of the pandemic, we experienced more vacancies than we were accustomed to. So that leads into that first bullet point, that any time during last school year, 23-24, we could have up to 30 teacher vacancies. Well, we were filling those positions with long-term substitutes that were well-trained, had good experience in teaching techniques, et cetera. And they were coming close to completing the requirements to become certified teachers. However, they were paid as long-term subs, so they weren't really getting a whole lot of benefit out of that, but they were serving from their hearts. Additionally, our campuses recognize the skill set of our teacher assistants. So oftentimes we call our campuses, and our principals are bragging about our teacher assistants who have skills in managing classroom discipline, helping with instruction. So one of our pushback questions was, what are we doing to get them certified? When are we going to get them into the classroom? So we identified two different employee groups, and we're going to focus on those two groups tonight. One is the Teacher Assistant to Teacher program. I'm going to focus on that. And Tiffany is going to focus on the Educator in Training program. And I'll be referring to the Educator in Training program, but I don't want to steal Tiffany's thunder, so I'm going to stick to the Teacher Assistant to Teacher program. All right, so this is basically going to be a program that, for those that qualify, it's a fast track to get them in front of our kids in the classroom. We want them to be full-time teachers. In this program, they're going to continue to serve in their role as teacher assistants while they complete the requirements to become certified, and they're working with an alternative certification program. I know most of you know what that is, but I want to identify the differences. So I went to the University of Texas and majored in education so that I could become a teacher. I student taught and did all the requirements necessary, tested, et cetera, became a teacher. An alternative certification program, I'm going to use Tiffany as an example. She studied science. She wanted to be a dentist and went to Texas A&M. However, her heart was in teaching, so she worked with an alternative certification program and became a teacher. So both programs yield quality employees. For this program, HEBISD will cover the cost of that ACP for the teacher assistant while they're working on this, on those requirements. So we partnered with an alt-cert program with whom we work regularly, I Teach Texas, and they're the ones that really help lay out all the expectations for this program. We are going to pay for that alt-cert program for those that qualify. So there's also going to be an opportunity for reimbursement for any tests. If teacher assistants are working quickly enough, there are some opportunities for us to pay for those certification tests. And of course, we have promissory notes set up. So those promissory notes state that we will pay, the program costs $4,000 in total. We'll pay $2,000 up front at the beginning of the year. The teacher assistant will continue to work in her role as the teacher assistant while obtaining those certification requirements through the ACP. And then you have to get it done within a year, and at the end of the year, you complete all those requirements, we pay the last $2,000. It's a return on investment for both parties. So for us, we're investing in those teacher assistants that we recognize, man, you're going to be a great teacher someday. And it also gives them an incentive to stay with our district. On the flip side, it's a return on investment for them because it's helping with a pretty substantial cost for the certification program. And we identify up to 7 candidates annually. Now, this is our first year, but the plan is to identify up to 7 every year. So how do they become eligible, or how are they eligible? One, they have to be working with our district for at least 1 year. They have to have a bachelor's degree with at least a 2.5 GPA. They have to have a strong recommendation from our principals, which, like I said, we've already been talking about some of these TAs with our principals. And priority is going to be given to those who are not already enrolled in an ACP. And then they have to go through our application process. So they will apply to qualify for this program. Again, we look at when a teacher assistant applies, we ask that principal to submit a principal recommendation. And then HR will do an applicant screening to make sure they meet the minimum requirements for that alt-cert program. Then they have to interview with us, and we're going to ask them questions based on their philosophy of instructional practices, classroom management, etc. When they pass those first few steps, we provide an orientation in conjunction with iTeach to let them know this is what the program is going to look like. This is what next year is going to look like, and we outline that for them. And then, I know it says application again, but we actually don't want them to apply to iTeach until they've applied for our program, because having identified them and making sure they meet those minimum requirements, then they can apply. We don't want them to waste their time applying to that ACP up front. So here's our current status. 7 teacher assistants are currently in the program. They made it for the 24-25 school year. 2 were hired as educators in training. And remember, Tiffany's going to speak to that, but I want to just state that that's going to be a promotion from a teacher assistant position. It's more pay. 1 has already been hired as a teacher. So talk about accelerated. They're really working hard to get to that goal. And 4 are still working towards completing those ACP requirements. And we've already opened the application process for the 25-26 school year. We started on March 3rd, and we're taking applications. So this just lays out the data, and up top you can see ES for elementary, junior high, and then high school. I like to look at that second row just to look at where the candidates fall. You can see we had 5 elementary school teacher assistants that qualified for the program, and 1 from junior high and 1 from high school. Of those 5 elementary schools, if you look right under the 5, you see 1 has been hired as a teacher for this current school year, and then 2 from the secondary level have gone to the educator in training program that Tiffany is going to speak about. And here are the pictures. It's always nice to see the faces of those that qualified. And then here they are in action. Action shots are always nice. And now Tiffany's going to discuss our educator and training program.
All right. Thank you guys for having us tonight. I'm excited to talk about this program and the success that we've had this first year. As far as our educator and training program, here's what it does for our upcoming teachers. It's a program that allows applicants in the process of obtaining their teacher certification to be hired as the teacher of record. In the past, we would hire them as long-term subs. Sometimes they would stay for the whole year, sometimes they wouldn't. This program has allowed our students to have a consistent adult who is working on certification in front of them from day one. So what does this mean for us? In HEB, we are one of the only districts in the surrounding area that are hiring these folks full-time. So they can go somewhere else and be a long-term sub, but they can come here and be a full-time salaried employee. So this year they're making $42,500, which is a step above what a long-term sub would make, also a step above what a teacher assistant would make. So just like Hector mentioned, several of our teacher assistants that are in that program from TA to teacher have already moved up one step to this educator and training program. They get their salary. They're on a 1-year at-will contract, at-will professional contract, which is unique. They get state and local leave, just like our teachers on 187s do. They get health benefits, and we contribute to those benefits. And they get credit for TRS for a year, and they get credit in their salary step or on their service record for a year of teaching service. So these are all perks that they would not get as a part-time, long-term substitute. When do they get recommended, or when can our principals start recommending educators in training? We ask our principals to hold off until July. And the reason we do that is because, of course, we want to look for certified teachers to fill our classrooms first. But you guys all know that July 1st date, July 4th, anywhere in between there, it locks people into their current school districts, and we can no longer steal or interview, sorry, those folks who are out there that are certified. And so we started thinking, what can we do for the great people that we have that don't have their certifications yet, but are ready and willing to work on those? And so that's when our principals can start hiring and interviewing these individuals, is in July. We do have quite a few educators in training that are in our hard-to-fill positions. In elementary, I can tell you that we have several special education educators in training and several bilingual educators in training. So that has been extremely helpful. What do our educators in training need? They also need a bachelor's degree, and they need to be able to obtain their certification within 12 months. So the school year is what we give them. We typically have this year 3 groups of people who have made it into our educator in training program. The first group are the folks who are in alt-cert programs, and they have their letter of acceptance to that alt-cert program, but they don't have their statement of eligibility yet. So they work for us as educators in training until they get that statement of eligibility, and then we just move them right into their teaching position. We have a second set of people who have actually gone to school in Texas to be educators. They have an elementary education degree or a secondary education degree, and for some reason or another, they just haven't passed all of the certification tests that they need to be highly qualified and 100% certified in Texas. So to give you some perspective, a special education teacher at the elementary level needs a special education test, a core test, an STR, a PPR, and eventually an ESL. So that's 5 exams. Some of these folks may have 3 exams done and just need 1 more or 2 more. And so we hire them as educators in training until they take those tests, and then we move them over to be teachers as soon as they get that done. And then the third group, which is our smallest group, are our folks who have out-of-state certifications. So they've gone to school, they're completely certified in another state, and they're waiting on Texas to review those credentials so that they can get their standard cert in Texas. A lot of these folks we were able to hire in July, and before school ever started in August, they were certified in Texas and ready to go. So thank you for allowing us to do that. What is the educator in training's return on investment? Well, from day one, they get to start with their teaching colleagues. So if we have them hired by July 23rd of this year, then they will start on July 23rd. They'll go to the new teacher trainings. They'll go to all of the campus training at the beginning of the year and all of the in-service days. They get to experience the quality professional development all year long that the teachers in their buildings are also experiencing. They get ongoing communication with myself or Luke DeFilippis in secondary. We check on them to see how their ACP program's going. We check to see if they've signed up to take tests. And we're constantly working with them to make sure that they're going to meet this 12-month deadline for us. And then they get a campus mentor on their campus that actually receives a stipend, and they get to work with that teacher throughout their time as an educator in training. And in return, what do we get? We get quality and consistent classroom instruction. These are the teachers of record. The kids don't know the difference. They don't know whether they have an educator in training or someone who is a fully certified teacher in Texas. And so the parents, the community, the kids in the classroom, they get that consistency. And it helps us to reduce those vacancies, like Hector mentioned, that at any point last year we're at 30. This year, right now, as of today, we have 3 in elementary and we have 6 in secondary. And then it also allows us to retain the folks that we've already trained and invested time and money in. And here's our data, which is super exciting. If you look at the elementary school column, you'll see that we started the school year with 23 educators in training in elementary, and 14 of those are already teachers. 8 are still working at their certification requirements, and we did have one resign who didn't come back the second semester. And then at the junior high level, we have 6 that we started with, 2 of which are already hired as teachers, 4 are still working. And at the high school level, we started with 6. We have 5 that have been hired as teachers and 1 who resigned. So great numbers so far, and we still have several months left for the remaining 12 to finish the program. Any questions for us?
Any questions about these programs? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for funding it.
We love win-win situations, so. All right, 7.04, revision to legal policy regulations and exhibits.
So you were provided with our overview. That's the easiest document to reference that has all of the policies for this entire update. And these are the regulations, and the exhibits. And so just for the benefit of everyone that's here, these are not policies that we make any adjustments or changes to. That's why there's no approval needed, because they are simply statute that we are accepting. Any questions?
Any questions on the regulations and exhibits? All right, 7.04, revision to FDA regulation admissions interdistrict transfers.
We had the opportunity to make some revisions to our regulation regarding interdistrict transfers. And I want to point out, you're going to hear from me a little later about the local policy that you all will consider approval of. And so you're going to see a lot of red line here, and that's because a lot of things were moved into the local policy. But also, this was primarily done for us to be able to make sure that folks who might be in private or charter schools that are existing within the zones of our school district, who may, for some reason, not have a place to go to school the following year, have an opportunity to apply here in HEB ISD. Many of those students may already live in the district, but if they don't live in the district, but the school that they are attending is in the district, they have the opportunity then to apply for a transfer. Any questions about the regulation?
Any questions about the regulation? All right, thank you. 7.06, fentanyl and suicide prevention lessons update. Ms. Rhodes.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Stacy Forrest, Coordinator of Counseling and Student Services. She'll be providing an update on the fentanyl and suicide prevention implementation plan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So you saw me up here last year presenting something similar, so I'm just kind of touching base on what we said we were going to do and then what we actually did. So according to HEB's strategic plan, this falls under priority safety and well-being for all students and staff, and the goal is to have all students and staff have access to ongoing preventative measures and interventions to support their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So again, this is in reference to a law that was passed last year, so House Bill 3908, saying that each school district shall annually provide research-based instruction related to fentanyl prevention and drug poisoning awareness to students in grades 6 through 12. So again, we talked about this last year as far as what the rollout was going to be, and then we have information included in here later that's the same as last year as far as the actual lesson we did for fentanyl prevention and then the lesson that we did for suicide prevention. So again, the rollout for this year was 25 to 30-minute guidance lessons. There was a suggested format, but the campuses had some choice in how they delivered it, depending on what worked best. Some of them, the counselors went in, some of them, especially at the secondary level, the teachers possibly did it after being trained by the counselors. So it looked a little bit different. As I kind of polled all my counselors a few weeks ago, we had 93% completion of the suicide prevention lesson up to this point, and 83% completion of the fentanyl prevention lesson up to this point, and 100% of campuses will have both of those lessons completed by the end of April if they have not already. So resources were shared with parents for suicide awareness. We talked a little bit about last year about structuring the classroom guidance in HEB to kind of align more with some of the specific months that are set aside for prevention of different things. So we did kind of revamp some of our guidance this summer with elementary and secondary to make sure it fit better in those months, with September being Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and October being Fentanyl Prevention Awareness Month. So there's examples of the kind of updated guidance calendar on there that shows for the different campuses what lessons are required, which ones are suggested to kind of align better with those prevention months. We did include information in our monthly social emotional newsletter for parents as far as suicide awareness in September, and next year we're going to make sure we include a little bit more information in the October one on fentanyl prevention. And then the rest of this is just the lessons. Again, they're the exact same ones we went over last year as far as for grades 6 through 12 for fentanyl prevention. The essential question being, why is it important to be aware of the risks of drugs being manufactured with fentanyl and other substances? Talks about topics such as what is fentanyl, what is a lethal dose, what is Narcan, how can students, where is that available on campus, and how is it used in order if someone has a fentanyl overdose, how can we raise awareness, and then also how can students stay safe on campus. And we have resources that are both within our district, for example, mentioning Bart Weedman, who's our licensed chemical dependency counselor that's housed at DAP, as well as other local area resources. And then same for the suicide prevention. We break that up a little bit more for grades 6 through 9 and then 10 through 12. And it covers what's a mood disorder, what are the signs and symptoms of depression, identifying a reliable person in your community or in your school that you can talk to, how can people help themselves and their friends stay safe, and again, what are those resources that they have both on campus and in the HEB area. Those are our example lessons. Any questions?
I don't have questions, but I have a comment.
Yes.
At high school, this is administered during Trojan Talk in Teams. And I wanted to say that I thought the curriculum for Trojan Talk in Teams was really well done. The challenge that my Trojan Talk had was that it's very heavy on videos. And my Trojan Talk is in the cafeteria. But not to worry. I'm in the cafeteria with 2 other Trojan Talk groups, so we gathered all 3 of the groups together, and Joy Cohen came and did a special curriculum just for those 3 Trojan Talks. And the best part about it was the kids got to practice with the Narcan, the little practice ones, and it was so well received. So I don't know if that's something that was available to all the classes. But it went over really well with my 3 classes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can definitely check in with her and see if that's something that we can incorporate a little bit more broadly so people know what that is.
All right, any additional questions?
And one fun fact, as of a story I heard on NPR today, that fentanyl deaths are down in all 50 states across the United States, so good thing to end on.
Thank you, Ms. Forrest. All right, 7.07, Reading Academy Update. Dr. Norgard.
All right, it's the time for updates, because last year at this time I was giving you an update on Reading Academy. Reading Academy is, of course, connected in our strategic plan through early literacy. Our goal in the strategic plan is K through 2. Reading Academy actually extends up to grade 3 as well. Hard to believe we are now in year 5. In some ways, hard to believe. In other ways, it took a little while to get here. We do have Amy Bettis, our Reading Academy cohort leader, who's been with us all 5 of those years, is here this evening as well, should there be any questions that I cannot answer for you. But because I update you in March, we're not quite through with 1 year before the next year gets going, so I just wanted to back up for just a minute, tell you what I couldn't tell you last March, that we did finish a local implementation, so one that we're running with Ms. Bettis, for the Science of Teaching Reading comprehensive cohort, so that in-person model, and they completed in April of last year. We had 23, I say educators because sometimes they're not all classroom teachers. We do have principals are required to go through Reading Academy. We've trained all of our principals, so we've shifted our focus to as we get new assistant principals so that before they move into that principal role, they would have this. It might also include some facilitators or other roles. And we were also at that same time, last year we had a bilingual comprehensive cohort going at Region 11 because we don't have a certified bilingual cohort leader, and that cohort wrapped up in June of last year. We just had 2 teachers in that cohort.
we're still at 100% completion. The model that we have done, the funds that you have provided to support this mandate from the state have really kept us in a way that we are delivering material that our teachers get it. They are being successful with it. We say, we're gonna love you through it. This may be a hard part, but here we go. We're in this together, and really helping them see how this connects to what we're already doing with our students. So that's a bragging point for sure. So now here we are in year 5. So we have another cohort that launched in the summer that's still running right now that has 40 educators. That's currently happening with our comprehensive. For bilingual, we've been sending them to Region 11. Region 11 was making a transition to when their cohorts would begin, and so we made a decision that we would not start anyone in the September cohort because they were going to start offering a June cohort, which brings us back in line. So that when I come here, I'm not saying, well, we had a group over here and a group over here and all these different dates. So we had 0 participants for this year, but that's why you'll see in the upcoming, our bilingual is a little bit larger because the people that kind of were a skip year this year, we're going to roll them in together. So we're going to continue with June. The requirement from the state is teachers of K-3 students, not just reading. If you're working with K-3 students, you must begin your Reading Academy journey during your first year of teaching. We have shifted to June, which still counts as that first year of teaching, because that allows us, those brand new teachers coming in, which is what many of these are, they get that first year under their belt. We're still launching in their first year, but we're not pulling them off. Remember, this is 10 days of content we need to do with them. We are letting those first year teachers be with their students and build those relationships. And then our bilingual teachers will also shift to a June cohort. So we are always estimating at this point, but pretty good estimates. So we're expecting around 50 in our local implementation cohort. Could be new coming in, could be teachers that are moving into K-3 for the first time. Maybe they've been a 4th grade teacher. And we expect 7 in the bilingual cohort at this time. Numbers may change as we get that final staffing for 25-26. So the scheduling, we are always looking for how can we be creative and not pull teachers more days than we have to from their students. So we have been doing for a few years now, we're going to grab those first 2 days in the summer. We said it's a June launch. We're going to get them through an orientation and enrolled into the course officially through TEA, and then they will come in. They get a choice. They've already, all the teachers that we know and expect to be in this cohort that we were aware of already, got these dates back in December, so that they could appropriately plan for their summer to know, I need these 2 days in June or these 2 days in July that they had the choice of. We're also going to capitalize on 2 district PD days where they were already going to be in PD and not with students. So that means we're going to have 6 remaining days that teachers need to complete Reading Academy. This current year, we started something new. We had a large number of special ed teachers, in particular our FOSSI program teachers, which we had not previously put through Reading Academy, that those were going to be especially difficult, having substitutes in those classrooms and making sure that those students had the support they needed. So this year we started offering a choice. They could either come with a substitute or we offered Saturday. We thought we'd see how that went. We've actually had a great response on those Saturday dates, with almost half, depending on the month, choosing Saturday to come in. Our teachers don't like to be away from their kids. They want to be in there for that instruction. They know that this is necessary. We are compensating them, which we'll talk about in the money. But because that was so successful this past year, we're going to continue with that choice. And let those teachers see what works best for them, for their students, for their schedules. They do not have to commit. They're not, I'm doing 6 Saturdays. It may be, I can do 4 of these on Saturday, but ooh, I've got a family commitment or something else, so I'm going to do this on a work day. So it is not an all or none. Nice to have choices. So then when we get down to the financial side, we need to pay the people that are doing it. We get to pay Region 11 for the privilege of using them as our authorized provider, even though it's our own person that is delivering the instruction. And then you'll see the others are stipends for summer or substitute pay if they're coming from days of school or Saturday trainings. And when we do Saturdays, we also need to account for custodial at Pat May Center. So this is for our local implementation cohort. And then for our bilingual, we're not in control of the schedule when they're with Region 11. So we can't say, when we were first moving and we had, here's 20 teachers in your cohort, we're half your cohort, we could say, hey, could you put a date on this district PD day? When we have just a handful of their total cohort that could be up to 60, we could make requests, but we are not in control of which days our teachers are going to get pulled. So we anticipate, that's why it's scheduled as 10 days of sub-release for those teachers, because we don't get to choose and maximize the summer and district PD days. Do you have any questions?
Any questions on the Reading Academy? All right, thank you, Ollie.
Thank you.
Here's a fun update. HEB reads. Kira Elledge.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank y'all for having me. I have two ladies with me that I'll introduce in just a second. But we are just going to do real quick an update for you. Our mission, of course, is still the same, to strengthen the community. For the strategic plan, we'll align with goal number 5, which would be family and community partnerships. Just a couple of areas, the Summer Reading Challenge, of course, to combat the summer slide, putting HEB, HE&B together with HEB to create a consolidated program that would incentivize and reward our kiddos for reading over the summer, and then also to provide parents not only with resources but with access to materials to be able to help their kiddos. This is from the beginning. So we really had to go into our archives. This was paper pencil stuff that we had back in 2017. Spreadsheets on back of napkins for some of these to be able to give us the data for what we've done. But it's, if you'll look, the top line would be us, us as a community, and then HEB ISD below that. We're pretty proud of these numbers. Yes, we did have, we've dipped a little bit with COVID, but I think we're on the upswing and starting to see some really strong results going forward. 8.8 million minutes last summer. This was the billboard. I don't know if y'all saw this, but this was the billboard on Bedford-Euless Road and 183. And just some of the things that we've incorporated over the years. Of course, all the kids get books. The cities give away aquatic passes with food coupons, shirts, sunglasses, anything we think that will encourage a child to read over the summer, we're going to give them. Online badges, the mayors hand out medals and do parties, social media shout outs, anything that will help us get our kids to read is what we want to do. This has also been a big hit in the district since 2018. Those of you that have been here since this came in remember all of the struggles that we had getting this here. But the think tank has been great to help us increase our interest in STEM with our students and with their families. We've done 212, and that's my number, so I might be a little bit off, but we've done 212 community and school events since 2018. So it has been a lot of fun. So I wanted to show you some numbers. So I'll put these up here. 2, 2, 3, 3, and 8. Anybody want to guess on these? The first two. What do you think it might be? 2 would correspond to which one of these things?
The average event time.
No. I'm going to give them to you.
Minimum number of TT.
Minimum number of think tank team members. We have 2 people at every event in the school district. The second 2, this is the number of oil changes that we've had since 2018. I talked to Joseph Chavez this morning, and he said, why change the oil? You don't have that many miles. I went, okay. We've had 3 skirmishes, and I will not talk about any of them because none of them are mine. That's all I'm going to say. But each one of the cities has taken a time having some fun with the machine. 8 is the total number of think tank members that we have in the district. These are teachers and librarians that get paid extra to go out and conduct the events through the schools. And then the last one, that is the average event time, 3 hours. So it has been a lot of fun. And just so you know, 3,617 miles on the machine as of right now. So I'm going to take a second and turn over a little bit of time to these two ladies behind me, and then I'm going to come back up for one more thing.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ellen Jones. I'm here representing the Euless Library Foundation, and this is Sherry Knight, the director of the Euless Library. We are here to tell you about an event that's coming up the first time ever in this community. It is one that came about after we invited other foundations or friends of the library together last June to talk about how do we service our public libraries, how do we supplement the kind of activities that they want through fundraising and activities. And at the end of that meeting, which, by the way, 60 people showed up to from around DFW, we all realized that we all had the same mission of trying to raise funds for our public libraries that extend beyond the city budgets. And so what we came up with, well, actually it was a random thought finishing the meeting when I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could just have a day just for people to give to public libraries, to our associations, kind of like North Texas Giving Day? Well, everybody got silent and said, yeah, I like that idea. And I turned to Sherry and said, I think we have a job to do. And amazingly, this has come together. We started out with a small team helping us with nothing other than our thoughts. And you'll see at the bottom of this, the amazing partners who have stepped forward. Because when we went to talk to each of them, they said, this is an amazing idea. We want to support you. So the Community Foundation of Texas, who sponsors North Texas Giving Day, has given us our own landing platform. They have provided for public library associations to have a place where people can come in and donate. They've not only waived all the registration fees, but they absorb all the costs of credit card charges. So every bit of money will be 100% coming to our associations. Channel 5 Telemundo was thrilled about the connection with reading, so they have a big program as well. Sherry and I had the opportunity. Why don't you tell them what we did this past week?
Thank you, Ellen. So we had the opportunity to be interviewed on 5 Talk Street. And if you're not familiar with that show, it's a community organization show that NBC5 does. And we got to sit down with the anchor, Vince Sims, tell them all about Library Giving Day and the role that public libraries, friends and foundation groups play. And it was a really nice opportunity to be able to kind of tell that story. And talking about our sponsors, can I say the amount?
Yes, yes.
I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so H-E-B Grocery Store, I'm sure y'all know because of their generous donation to the Education Foundation and other things, are huge supporters of literacy in the community. And again, through just some kind of bird dogging by Ellen here, we were able to secure a $25,000 grant from their fine folks there. And what that did was pay for all of the marketing materials. So we were able to get signage and printed materials and digital billboards and all kinds of things. And we have 27 library organizations all throughout North Texas that have all come together to take advantage of this. And so everybody got together at the Euless Library on Saturday, all picked up their signs. We all shared ideas on how to make this campaign a success, and we are off and running. So, yeah.
And so we're here not only to tell you about it, but to have 2 asks. First ask is that we believe very strongly that it takes the community leaders to stand up and show support of something new like this in our community. Just so you know, all 3 city library associations are participating in this. We have libraries from Sunnyvale, Dallas, Richardson, the Colony, Capel, Southlake, Arlington, Benbrook, Burleson, Fort Worth, North Richland Hills, all the way up to the Red River at Pottsboro. We also have Decatur and Denton and Azle and Aledo. We have people everywhere doing this, and they all have the same signage. But what we want to ask is our leadership, and anyone here in the room who'd like to also, to take a yard sign They're sitting right out there in the hallway. And please put it in your yard because it states an awful lot to your neighbors and people going by to say, oh, this person supports something very, very different. And that's what we hope to make a success. My second ask is that we be allowed to go place one of these signs at every campus here in the district. Put it in the front as parents come by and see this. And I hope that in both arenas you'll support us in this. April 1st is the actual day of giving, but the platform, like North Texas Giving Day, is open before and afterwards. And so we all have our individual goals, but the idea is to really support public libraries and enable them to do bigger and better things for each of our communities. Any questions?
Any questions?
Oh, what was that? Oh, there's one more slide? For me? No, I don't think so. Not for me, for her, for Kira. She's going to come back up. All right, thank you so much for this time, and I'm going to leave those out there and hope all of them are gone for someone here in the audience. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellen.
So I want to dovetail off of that, and I want you to take a look at this as far as the community outreach goes in HEB. And just the partnerships that so many are willing to give to the district to support the literacy as well as the STEM initiatives that we have with HEB Reads. We are so fortunate, and I could have filled this entire screen with so many more logos because it is just the outpouring is amazing when it comes to this community. And when we talk to people, Sherry and I talk to people about HEB Reads all the time, and just the looks that we get. You work with your cities, you know, yes, and we work well. And we've done this for so long, and we are very proud of this. So I just wanted you to see some of the ones that we work with and to let you know that In and Out is coming back to HEB Reads this year. I know I got some nasty letters for the last couple of years. I won't mention anybody on the dais that might have, expressed their displeasure. But In and Out will be coming back. We're going to add a carnival maze this year. The party's going to be on the 17th. Some inflatables. We got a train depot this year. We're super excited about that. We're going to add in some new community partners and some event sponsorships. So we're looking forward to a fun time on Saturday, May 17th, and we hope that we see all of you there. I know that we say this whenever we talk to, y'all know I'm going to cry, whenever we thank donors that give to our schools, and say that, Julie always says this, that we couldn't do what we do without their support. I could not do what I do and what HEB Reads does without your support. So thank you all so much for that. Do you have any questions? I didn't cry.
Any questions about HEB Reads?
Concerns, comments? All right. Thank y'all, and I'll see you on May 17th.
Thank you, Garo. Thank you. All right. Review of monthly regular meeting board agenda items. 8.01, financial statements for the month of January 2025.
All righty. Always challenging to follow such exciting, fun news with financial statements, but we'll see what we can do. So we're going to take a look.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. So when it's not exciting, it's exciting. It's good. So we're going to look at the financial statements for the month ended January 31st, 2025. The general fund, we have a fund balance of $251,369,908. That represents revenues over expenditures in the amount of $73,066,624. Investment interest for the reporting period was at $1.4 million, so we continue to do well with that. Total expenditures as of January 31st were at 40.72% compared to being a little less than halfway through our year. So we're doing right on track there. So that fund is performing as we would like it to. The general fund expenditure matrix, we had payroll at the end of January was $77,061,613, which is 84%. That's inching up to the 86, 87 that we typically end up. We'll end up this year at about 86, actually. Utilities in the amount of $2,130,239 represented 2.3% for the month. Instructional supplies of $1,383,102, we're at 1.5%. And other expenditures, which includes the property insurance I mention every month, that was $3,122,194 was 3.4%. The Child Nutrition Services Fund had a fund balance of $7,383,873. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of $465,247. They continue to operate well. Marielle always does a great job with her department and feeding those kiddos. Kudos to her, especially this last Wednesday when we had our little evacuation. She got them in there, got them fed, did a great job, her and her crew. So shout out to her. Total expenditures for the month were 36.23%, and as I say, that's really good considering we're almost halfway through the school year. So that budget continues to perform very well. Debt service fund had a fund balance of $79,263,07. That represents revenues over expenditures in the amount of $55,011,601. We just made our first debt payment for the year in the amount of $18,338,525. That was due February 15th. I think we made it around the 12th or 13th. We always make it a few days ahead of time just in case, because we don't want to be late. Big penalties for that. And that second final debt payment of $43,104,400 will be due in August 15th. And investment interest for this year in this fund is current, as of the end of January, was setting at $633,000. Tuition-based pre-K program had a fund balance of $504,195. That represents revenues over expenditures in the amount of $164,045. Revenue received for the period, we're sitting at 60.34% of the budget. Total expenditures were only at 42.71% of the budget, so well ahead of where we need to be for the year. Special revenue funds, as of 1/31, we were at 32.11% of the budget. Again, that's well below where we should be at halfway through the year. Expenditures exceed revenues, which is always the case with your special revenue and federal program funds, because we spend the money first and then ask for reimbursement. So we always lag behind there. But those funds are performing and tracking as expected. Campus Activity Fund, fund balance of $3,753,429. That represents revenues over expenditures in the amount of $391,000. Revenues were at $1.5 million, while expenditures were at a little less than $1.2 million for the period. So, but like I say, that'll start shifting as we move towards the end of the year. But those funds are performing as expected also. 2024 bond, we have fund balance of $560,511,693. That represents expenditures over revenue in the amount of $12,390,651. Investment interest in this fund is at a whopping $7.7 million as of the end of that reporting period. And as I've mentioned before, that's on the first issue of $600 million. We will be selling the remaining bonds probably sometime in the summer of 2026. And that number will, now that we are ramping up construction, that number will start coming down fairly rapidly. So. Locally defined capital projects fund balance of $28,413,719. That represents revenue over expenditures in the amount of $184,427. Usually that's the other way around, but we're wrapping up a lot of our projects, so we're not spending as much out of that as we typically would. But that too will change as we start working on some of these new projects. Investment interest. Revenue for the year as of the reporting period was $407,000. And then, as you know, other than interest income, the only time funds get moved into this account is when you, the board, decides to move some. We have funds available and you decide to do that. So What's currently being used for this fund is, of course, you'd think we'd be done with Bel Air by now, but we are mostly done. We still have some retainage that we're holding on until that is finalized. So, and ongoing safety and security additions, and then the Trinity and Bell baseball softball also has some mostly retainage funds left that will still come out of this fund. And then we're continuing to buy maintenance vehicles, band instruments, and I think we've ordered all the buses that we are going to order for the year. So, and that's about it, I believe. Any questions?
All right, any questions on the financial statements? All right, let's look at budget transfers and amendments.
This month, the budget transfers and amendments are very minimal. Mostly are the proposed transfers, inter-function transfers, most of which are going into Function 11, the instructional function, which is always a good thing, but pretty routine for the month.
Any questions on transfers and amendments? All right, 8.03, thank you, Dobie. Revisions to localized policy, TASB policy update 124. Ms. Tuttle?
So these are the local policies that accompany the update for 124, and these are the policies, again, for the good of everybody who's here, that we do have the opportunity to make revisions to. And we've reviewed all of TASB's recommendations, as have the policy owners, and we are moving forward with recommending their verbiage on each of these. And so this would be something that you would consider approval at next meeting. Any questions?
Any questions on update 124? All right, let's look at revisions to board policy DFBB local.
So one of the great things that happens when you've had policy reviews, and then when you're constantly reviewing policies for the purpose of alignment, is that sometimes you come up with areas where you need to make alignments. And so that is what this is. This is policy DFBB, and it is the list of board-approved reasons why an educator may have a proposed non-renewal toward their contract. And we do often employ individuals on a temporary basis to fill in when an educator is out of the classroom who has the right to return the following year. And when we do that, it's been recommended that that be one of the proposed non-renewal reasons. We have never had any issues with that, but should that ever arise, this would protect us. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Cicely. 8.05, RFP number 24-22B for catering and snack services. Mr. Kerbo.
Good evening, trustees. We just can't seem to get enough food vendors the first time we do this. So, people come in and we have different needs, culinary needs and so forth. So this is a supplemental bid to our catering and snack RFP that we issued or was approved earlier, and this will add a number of vendors to our existing list of vendors approved to purchase food and snacks from.
All right, any questions on this list? All right, let's move down to action items. 9.01, consider approval of 1701 West Euless Boulevard renovations job order contract, construction delivery method.
So as you recall, we've purchased a few properties to help relocate some programs that we've identified needing new housing. One of those is Keys High School and the DAEP programs for both elementary and secondary. And linked to that was the Bel Air Elementary construction. So originally when this contract was awarded, it was awarded to Core Construction, as you recall, as an assigned contract since they were related to one another. Well, when the termination of
Bell
that,
Manor, right?
Bell Manor, I'm sorry, pardon me. When that contract was terminated, then that caused us to take look at other options to be able to move this project forward, and we looked at several things. The job order contract was under our managed job order contract service was seemed to be the best option for us to be able to move forward quickly and maintain our construction schedule as we did, or as was originally projected. As you know, part of the requirements for construction procurement is for the board to approve the construction delivery method. And so this process will yield two actions. This is the first action, is for the board to approve the job order contract construction delivery construction delivery method for this project.
All right, do we have any questions first off on the job order contract delivery method, which is what the first thing that we're voting on? If there are no questions, I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approve the job order contract construction delivery method as the method best suited for the renovation of the 1701 West Euless Boulevard facility as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the job order contract construction delivery method as the best suited for the renovation of the 1701 West Euless Boulevard facility as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. 9.02, consider approval of 1701 West Euless Boulevard renovations job order contract proposal.
Okay. Now that the construction delivery method has been approved, we now bring the proposal through our job order contract program from SDB Contracting Services for you to consider. And we think it's a very thorough proposal, and we've provided a good bit of detail for you to look at. But we have our folks from SDB Contracting Service here, as well as Gordian is our job order contract manager. And our architect assigned to this is Miss Aubrey Moses from Huckabee. So,
has this gone through HPM?
I'm sorry?
Has this gone through HPM?
No, this was not one of the projects that HPM was assigned to.
All right, any additional questions on this contract? All right, I'll accept the motion.
I move the board approve the JOC proposal for SDB Contract Services for the renovation of 1701 West Euless Boulevard facility as presented.
I have a motion and second for the board to approve the JOC proposal for SDB Contracting Services for the renovation of 1701 West Euless Boulevard facility as presented. Please vote. That motion passes. So I'm sure they've told you, but this is the first domino of many that need to fall. So we're looking forward to you guys doing a great job for us. Okay.
Yeah, I will say they performed the electrical upgrades to 2100 Plaza under those conditions after the theft. So they did a great job for us on that. So we have a lot of confidence moving forward with them.
All right. Thank you. 9.03, consider approval of Music for All National Concert Band Festival trip payment.
Okay, Trinity High School's band, their honor band has qualified for the National Concert Band, Music for All National Concert Band Festival. And we're bringing this to you because the majority of the payment for this comes from district funds, and it's just under 100,000, or just under 100,000. But the combined total is over 100,000. Board policy requires approval of any payments related to that. And the reason we're taking this tonight for action is I think they leave in the morning, tomorrow night. So this is our last chance to do that.
Yeah, I already got my plane ticket to go. So,
I got to see them on Friday night. They did their, I don't know what they called it, get ready for the big event concert. And it was really impressive. And to think how far the Trinity Band has come in just a few years, they're going to knock it out of the park. I'm really excited for them.
Yeah, I got to go to the same event a few years ago with Central Junior High and Bell played, and it's a phenomenal facility at Butler University, and they have the best of the best clinicians there to work with these kids. It's a great experience all the way around, so I'm looking forward to going and watching it again. I will accept the motion if there are no further questions.
I move the board approve the payment for the trip to Performance America for the Trinity High School Band's participation in the Music for All National Concert Band Festival as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the payment for the trip to Performance America for the Trinity High School Band's participation in the Music for All National Concert Band Festival as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. 9.04, consider approval of memorandum of understanding. It's getting late.
Good evening. We wanted to bring this MOU to you between us and DCI, Drum Corps International. They are one of the premier groups that put on events all throughout the country, and so they want to use Pennington. And Pennington continues to remain a place that people want to perform. And we're really excited because this is going to bring thousands of people into our stadium and it's into our district to watch some amazing drum corps.
Yeah. Any questions on this MOU? I will accept the motion.
I move the board approve the MOU as submitted.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the MOU as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. 9.05, consider approval of board policy FDA local.
Last but not least, FDA local is the corresponding policy to the regulation that we spoke about earlier. And this change that we're bringing for your consideration would give the superintendent the authority, should there be a situation that ever comes up where we would want to consider accepting a transfer student for any scenario that may not be listed in our policy. It would give him the opportunity to do that without having to wait to add that to the policy.
And the one thing I did want to point out, this is full of X out. Remember, the information that was in local has moved to reg. So the conditions that we have in place in this local policy are still in place. They have just moved to reg.
Any questions?
Any questions on this policy? I'll accept the motion.
I move the board approve the policy revisions as submitted.
Second? Okay, I didn't hear it. I have a motion second for the board to approve the revisions as submitted. And that motion passes. Ready for open forum number 2? No cards. Other business, opportunity for board members to request items be placed on future board agendas. Anybody have anything? All right, so review board activity chart. Looking at March. Looks like everything's covered. Reminder, now's the time if you're meeting with your legislatures to get out there and make appointments and you know, yeah, I know most of you are doing it, but it's,
Becky, were you able to put on here, or when you get the chance, put on there your meetings? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but that's a good thing to bring up, Matt, because even though many of us have gone once, maybe going again to Austin, there are also lots of opportunities to speak to particular bills. So pick up the phone and call them, or text them if you have their cell phone number. Let them know how we feel on particular bills. They need to know that.
And that is considered a communication, and folks should be written down as well.
All right, I'll add that.
all right, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.